Good afternoon. Welcome to our show, The Great Talk. I'm Dr. Muhammad Rafiq Faruqi, Editor-in-Chief, CE Media Group. Today, we are going to have conversation with Dr. Kiran Desai, sir, the Honourable Professor of Center for Social Studies in Surat, Gujarat State of India. Sir, I would like to welcome you in our program.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm equally grateful to you for giving us your important time.
My pleasure.
To proceed, I would like to know, first of all, your good introduction.
Yeah, I'm Kiran Desai. I have been working in this research institute, a social research institute, Center for Social Studies, since last 32 years. I'm original Surti. I belong to this place, and I did my PhD from sociology, and I have been working on, so far as research is concerned, on the areas especially regarding working class, because as you know, this part of India, that is South Gujarat, is known for industrial development, especially in small and medium scale industrial development. And since I joined this institute, I have been working on this area, because earlier I worked with one youth group. At that time I was quite young, and we also carried out certain activities. So in that way I came into contact with working class, because basically Surat city is a working class city. It's an industrial place, and so it is not wrong to call it a working class place. So I have been working on working class. I have been working especially on unorganized sector and some issues regarding urbanization, communal relationship, because as you know, Gujarat is, I should not say known, but I had a rather very bad view regarding these communal tensions time and again. So I have been focusing on that issue also, especially with regard to Surat city. So that is one area. Another area which I have been much interested since very long is on the art and society interface. Because I believe that various forms of arts, whether it's literature, whether it's cinema, whether it's drama or any other form, are very much associated, affiliated to society.
True.
And if you read for instance, if you read the literature of the 18th century, you would come to know about how was the social fabric at that time. So that way society and literature had a very close tie. So I have been also interested in this literature, or largely, to put it largely, society and art interface, and also certain developmental issues, because the issue of development paradigm has been nowadays, and since last 20 or 25 years, has been at the core of public discourse.
Correct.
So I have been also focusing on developmental issues, especially concerning marginalized sections. And when I say marginalized sections, I include working class, I include minorities, I include the tribals, Dalits, women, other backward communities, and so on. So these are certain, in nutshell, certain issues on which I have been focusing as a student to know something more about society.
Great. Very greatly you have elaborated and given a right framework for each point. To proceed, sir, I would like to know also, there are a lot of responsibilities on your shoulder based on these projects or activities you talked about. How would you frame your strategy? What are your planning points or preparations?
A very interesting question. You see, that's what at CSS, I mean Center for Social Studies, we have, I mean, so to say, kind of our method to carry out research. You see, we believe that any researcher, I am talking about social sciences only, I don't talk about physical science. Any researcher who is working on social issues, he or she should be, I mean, she has that realization that you are an integral and organic component of that society. And so you should have a identification.
Correct.
You should have a, I mean, empathetic viewpoints,
Correct.
especially concerning the marginalized sections who have been suppressed, oppressed, exploited, and remain backward and poor. So you should have this realization.
Correct.
Otherwise, by reading or following certain textbook methods, and when you are talking about how should a researcher prepare oneself for this activity, there is a debate it's an age-old debate on objectivity and subjectivity. You see that any researcher or any social or science researcher, so to say, and this debate or this point has come from the physical science, natural science, so to say, that researchers should be very objective. Otherwise, if her or his prejudices, ideas, whatever she or he has learned by way of socialization process, he has to undergo, and everybody goes under socialization process, then the research will be affected. That is the the argument, especially by physical science, and this argument has been also so to say carried out or accepted by some of the social scientists who believes in positivism from the time of St. Auguste Comte, Herbert Spencer. They believe that likewise physical science, the social scientist also has to cultivate objectivity.
Correct.
Otherwise, his or her perceptions, ideas will reflect in whatever research activities he will carry out.
Correct.
Now, frankly speaking, of course, social science is also science. Somebody will say that social science is not a science. I deny that.
Correct.
I strongly deny that.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so if you consider yourself as social scientist, then you should follow certain scientific rules. So I do agree with that. So far as collecting data, so far as analyzing data, so far as interpreting your data and inferring on social reality, you should follow certain procedure, which we can call scientific. We should not play with data in order to prove your ideas. Everybody has ideas. Our founding director used to call it. Our founding director's name is Professor I.P. Desai, who used to say that every social scientist should have an idea about desired social order. That you want certain social order so that there are equality, justice, and other liberty, freedom, all noble ideas. So that is called social philosophy in nutshell. So yes, if you have certain social philosophy, then there is a kind of your perception, your perspective on society.
True.
And as a social scientist, you must have this perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You may have certain ideology,
Correct.
right? It should not be a taboo
Uh-huh.
for social scientists that to have a taboo that you cannot have ideology. No, I have certain ideology, I have certain soft corner,
Mm-hmm.
but that ideology or that soft corner should not come in the way of my research.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
However, and that is the in fact definition or definition of that methodology.
Mm-hmm.
In social science, methodology is very important.
Very important.
But methodology does not mean only the instruments, the tools which we apply while carrying out social science research. Methodology means your own ideas,
True.
your own personality, which is a part of your socialization, which is a part of your training,
Mm-hmm.
and which is a part of the location, social location,
Correct.
on which you have been, you are part of that location.
True.
Right? For instance, at present, I am an employee of Center for Social Studies.
Right.
And as a employee of Center for Social Studies, I have certain ideas
Mm-hmm.
about society.
Correct.
Because I have certain training.
Sure.
And also, because of this training and my socialization interact at certain point of time
True.
in my life.
True.
Because I have been grown as a middle class. Surat, very small at that time. Surat was Mufassil town,
Mm-hmm.
no airport, nothing, and I had a very middle class background.
Mm-hmm.
My parents or my other family members, we don't talk about politics largely, or about social issues.
Correct.
Right? We talk about personality.
Right.
Somebody need this. Somebody means relatives.
Uh-huh.
So these are our word. This was our word at that time.
Correct.
Now, when you become a social scientist, you have to enlarge your word.
Absolutely.
You have to be more comprehensive. You have to be more holistic in terms of taking into account certain components, sections, and reality.
Right.
That are component section affiliated with the reality.
Correct.
And slowly, if you read, because after training, after being in the institute, you get to know certain literature, and then you realize that the particular problem
Mm-hmm.
at particular location
Correct.
is not only concerned with the local issue,
Right.
but all the issues are related with the national situation,
Mm-hmm.
with international situation,
Correct.
and that's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That larger perspective should guide and steer
Uh-huh.
your research.
Correct.
So that's how we have to prepare ourselves. But let me also add, Professor Faruqi, that this will not come very easily.
Right.
It's a gradual process.
True.
It's a slow process.
Absolutely.
Suppose when I joined in 1985, I don't had this sort of perspective.
Right.
Right? I was, thinking I have certain emotions,
Right.
certain affiliation, certain empathy towards working class. So I choose working class
Mm-hmm.
because being a part of a youth club,
Mm-hmm.
we used to go to the slums
Mm-hmm.
and interacted with workers.
Uh-huh.
So at that time, I had certain realization that yes, Surat city is working class city.
Correct.
And so when I was asked by the employers at that time that what has been or what was your interest at that time,
Mm-hmm.
I said working class.
Correct.
And since center was working on downtrodden and marginalized sections, they accepted me.
Correct.
That there was a scope. They saw something in me, and
Correct.
so I came into. But slowly, when I had training here,
Mm-hmm.
and being associated with several research projects,
Correct.
and very kind of extensive and intensive reading. Then I realized, and slowly and gradually, I mean, my horizon of my vision has broadened, so to say. And now I realize that any simple problem, for instance, a murder took place some time back in Surat, and a girl was mercilessly murdered by her friend. Right? It was, this incident obviously has created a furor all over Gujarat society, so to say. And as usual, the social leaders, they had certain their own interpretation and ideas and solutions. That this has happened because of internet, this has happened because of social media, this has happened because young people are taking drugs, and so on, right? But you have to, assess certain specific incidents happened in Surat at specific location of Varacha Road in a very comprehensive and broader way, because after all, human being and after all, society is complex.
Absolutely.
It's a very complex. It is not that at one point of time that young man felt that I wanted to kill. It has gradually happened.
Correct.
And it happened because of his socialization process, because of certain cultural traits in the specific community.
Correct.
And certain local culture.
Correct.
Right? So all these factors, so the leaders or the parents or the society, they cannot say, no, we are not responsible for what has happened. So, there are, you see, society as such is a complex, and any incidents or any event, if you want to understand it,
Correct.
you have to take into account several social, economic, political factors and how they interact. And that is how one can very well. So this is how, broadly, we try to, put into practice our research. And but as I said, our focus, our our vision is specifically on marginalized and weaker sections. Why? Because we believe that because of the larger social structure, or larger political structure, these people have remained backward, marginalized.
Correct.
The argument which has been put forward by the people on the higher echelons, that these people remain poor, backward, because they did some wrong thing in their previous birth, or because of certain habits like drinking, or they are lazy people.
Correct.
This is all rubbish.
Absolutely.
Right? It is the structure which determines your social location,
Correct.
your position.
True.
I am here as a professor interacting with you because I am born in certain family which could afford me higher education, and I could get into certain institute. So it's a structural factor
Absolutely.
which determine my upbringing, which determine my progress in the life.
Correct.
It is not that I am very talented, my genes are very, such that I could, raise to certain extent. Right? So these are all rubbish, and we have to, so that's what I am emphasizing on social philosophy. That's what I am emphasizing on your ideology. Ideology not in a negative sense. Ideology means you should have certain ideas. If you have, you are fortunate enough to get higher education, then you should have certain ideas. That is the major, problem with our education system, Dr. Rafiq, that Our education system, if you analyze, are highly individualistic. Right? We ask each people or each student to focus on her or his personal career.
Correct.
Right? What you want to do? You want to be doctor, engineer, like that. Right?
Correct.
We never try to, train. Which Gandhi ji उसको कीड़वड़ी कहते थे. Gandhi ji not used to. I had certain opinion or certain, differences about Gandhi ji also. But however, his this point that what is education? He never called it education. Shiksha. He used the term कीड़वड़ी. कीड़वड़ी means your entire personality should be developed in such a way that you are always connected with the society, larger society. What has happened due to our this education system that we have become very very individualistic. And this is not some people would blame globalization or this new economic regime for this highly individualistic ideology. Right? That is okay. That this new economic paradigm compel you to become highly individualistic. If you want to progress, don't bother about society, don't bother about your family, don't bother about anything else. You just progress. You have all the avenues, all the opportunities. You go ahead. Right? That is how they this new ideology or ideology of I would say zombie capitalism that is operating right now. But even previously, because we have this capitalistic order from the very beginning.
True.
Right? Except earlier 20 years when we talk about mixed economy and state-owned certain mode of production, all these things. But later on, we became capitalistic order in terms of production activity. And after all, the materialistic condition determines social order, cultural order. So, what I am saying is that our education system also, nourish this tendency.
Correct.
That you have to be, you have to be very highly individualistic, and you should progress. In by whatever means.
Correct.
Right? We believe at here that no, that is not the way.
Correct.
Education should be part of your social order, social issues, and social status. Education should not escalate whatever injustice or whatever social problems which have been there, but it should be such, education system should be such that it address these social issues very very in a constructive way and in a positive way, and it should try to overcome and resolve these issues. But that has not happened, and now we are more and more become very. So that is, there are certain things when we carry out research activities, which are, there are certain, as I said, very simple words, social philosophy we have been adopting, and accordingly we have been carrying out our research.
Great. I think, sir, you are a living, true treasure of knowledge. The way you are elaborating the points, keeping everything with realistic examples in mind in front of us, I must say, or I must mention here to audience, that the way Professor Kiran Desai sir is giving us his life experience, it is a treasure which we have to preserve for us and for generations to come. To proceed, sir.
Yes.
The next I would like to ask you, sir, what are your principles which will not inspire for the people of India, but for the people of whole world?
You see, keep it very simple. My principles which I have been following or try to follow. First of all, being, as I said, being trained in a certain way, you have to have very critical outlook.
Correct.
You must cultivate critical mind.
Correct.
And when I am saying critical mind, I am not talking about negative thinking.
True.
To find faults with everything, everybody. No. What I am saying critical means you should not take any event, any principle or any holy figure at the face value.
Correct.
You should try to understand.
Correct.
And you should try to understand, try to infer from the perspective of certain basic values,
True.
and which I have been emphasizing again. That I have certain vision, certain vision about society.
True.
You may call it utopia, but my utopian social order, that is what one should strive for.
Correct.
And when I decide my utopian social order, it is not that I'm living in my dreamland. I know the realities. I know the limitations of human being.
Correct.
Right? I know that there are certain problems. And despite all the efforts put up by our great figures like Karl Marx to Mahatma Gandhi to Jawaharlal Nehru to Baba Saheb Ambedkar, still we are lagging far behind.
Correct.
And one may say that society is even going, the status of society even is further deteriorating. Right? That is also one observation, and you cannot deny it with that. So I feel that despite all these things, one should learn. If somebody is at my location as a researcher, as a figure who is observing society,
Correct.
with certain advantages.
Absolutely.
Because of training and because of this location I am having as a professor in a very well reputed research institute.
Correct.
One should cultivate these qualities and traits of critical mindset, and then one should work towards addressing those issues in whatever limitation one would have.
Correct.
Everybody has limitations.
Absolutely.
I'm a researcher, I'm an academics, and I'm working on working class. So I know what the problems with working class.
Correct.
And I want to, go to the forefront and address those issues.
Correct.
But as a researcher, I cannot do that.
Correct.
So my limitations, but however, at the same time, I should not be, I should not feel that because of my limitations, I can't do anything.
Correct.
It should not be like a kind of जिसे बोलते हैं ना कि वो पाँव में बेड़ी नहीं बन जाना चाहिए.
Correct.
You should go ahead,
Correct.
whatever way. So I have chosen, if you talk about my principles, I will write. I will write in the journals, I will write in the magazines, and if I have been given opportunity to talk to somebody like you have given me, I will express myself.
Absolutely.
Without any, without any constraints.
Great. Great.
I should not be afraid
Absolutely.
of the repercussion,
Absolutely.
of the implications.
Correct.
Because whatever I believe, I should, express
True.
and I put forward. Because this is my role.
Right.
This is my role as a social being,
Right.
not as an academician or social scientist, but as a social being
Correct.
who has certain vision.
Absolutely.
I may be wrong. People can criticize my visions.
Correct.
So my principle is this social order, the present social order, should be and must be changed.
Correct.
Must be changed by addressing what are the causes of these problems.
Correct.
And as I see, the causes is larger structure.
Absolutely.
The structure which we have chosen over a period of time by our leaders and society, and following it
Correct.
and strengthening it
Correct.
and re-strengthening it. This is the major problem with
Correct.
us. So we have to change the structure.
Correct.
It is totally non-egalitarian structure. It is exploitative structure.
Correct.
It is, and now it has become even more exploitative
Correct.
with globalization and all this new economic regime and the overall geopolitics. So you should have this vision. I mean, I am not saying I am having vague vision, but every student of the society
Correct.
should cultivate this vision,
Correct.
should analyze, and then accordingly, at whatever location or position he or she is holding, should work
Correct.
to ameliorate the situation,
Absolutely.
to change the situation.
Absolutely.
So if somebody is activist, he should, I mean, be active.
Correct.
But at the same time, while carrying out activism, he or she should have a proper understanding of the social reality.
Correct.
And then after that, he or she should become active. Otherwise, your action may bounce back and even create further problem. So this is how this is by and large, I believe that this is how, as is, social science student who try to understand social happening, social processes, social institutions,
Correct.
trying to follow certain traits or certain way of, as you put it very rightly, that how to prepare oneself. So my preparation and my principle should be amalgamated in such a way
Correct.
that they created organic existence.
Correct.
So that is how my practice should not be, against my principles.
Absolutely.
That is how I'm following. I'm trying to following. I may have to. I am also compromising quite well. Practically, so to say, in my social life, personal life, family life,
Correct.
community life.
Correct.
Because I am not an activist. Because maybe I don't have that commitment. But despite that, so far as my writings are concerned,
Correct.
so far as my research endeavors are concerned, I'm not compromising.
Great. Great.
And that's what one can do.
Absolutely. Pen is mightier than sword.
Yes.
Right, sir? And one thing came in my mind that the true development is the development of human being.
Definitely.
Person
Certainly.
is developed in a society, rightly, he can develop a large number of people.
Of course. Of course.
Sir, your thought process has given birth to a new question, that the principles you follow, though you are not directly or not contributing to the large extent in one section, but other section, that is the literature writing, that is humongous contribution given by your side. This gives the birth to this question: what inspires Dr. Kiran Desai, sir, to do this work, and so that that inspiration can be learnt by us and people who will watch this interview?
This is very, though the question is very simple, but it's very tricky. And because it's a complex process.
Correct.
Because most of the learning, any human being, not I'm talking about myself, the learning takes place at the subconscious level.
Absolutely.
And I'm not sure what my subconscious level has, how it has worked.
Right.
Because it depends on my birth, my genes. However, I firmly believe that, of course, it is my upbringing, my socialization process.
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
that makes me compassionate, broad-minded to an extent. And also, but so my socialization process also helped me quite a lot in terms of who am I at present. And also maybe my genes. That's why because you have to be very sensitive, very sensible, empathetic, not only sympathetic towards other problems,
Correct.
identify
Absolutely.
with others, and that is the one thing. So my socialization process, and more than that, or more than that, equally, I think my training.
Correct.
Whatever training, whichever training which I have received, basically after entering into this institute, Center for Social Studies, because I entered this institute, I joined this very institute when I was very young, and so it was my formative years,
Correct.
and so the whatever training I had, so far as I am talking about my mind only,
Correct.
my perspective, my vision, my thinking, the ideas that I have got from this institute. And this institute makes me, combining, clubbing with my personality of sensitive nature, or certain qualities of fair-minded, empathetic, considerate. So this, my traits, my qualities have been, quite well. I should say, been part of my work, my professional work as a social scientist, and these traits help me to an extent to whatever I could do as a researcher, which by remaining in this institute. But my institute has taught me, has trained me, so far as my ideas, my vision, my perspective towards society. So of course, I have certain limitations as a person. I have certain very many limitations as a researcher, and so that's my problem.
Correct.
Right? Because this institute has very well-known and renowned researchers,
Correct.
and earlier also, and so this institute is not responsible for my limitations.
Absolutely.
Limitations are all mine.
Correct.
But whatever positive somebody is seeing outside, externally, or whatever I have learned, I must accept. But for my viewpoints, my vision, my this critical mindset, which I consider very positive, are because of this training which I have got by being in this Institute Center for Social Studies.
Great. I would say one of the greatest social scientists you are, who has a profound, in-depth knowledge on the subject to elaborate how the social structure should be, at least for the state of India. The few questions, or the two last questions I would like to know. Sir, what sort of India do you visualize should be now, or up to 5 years, or most probably after a decade? What sort of India are you visualizing?
Yeah, you see, I don't have to personally add into it more. Our constitution is a very well drafted documents, and it's been drafted by all visionary people like Baba Sahib Ambedkar and others. So these are all principles which we should, as a society, as a social order, we should try to, put into action.
Absolutely.
So my first vision is that yes, I want to have India as envisioned, as so by our constitution founders. Secondly, personally, that comes from my analysis of this society. You see, despite our inscribing certain principles and certain values in the written documents like constitution, certain issues are at the ground level you have to address.
Absolutely.
right? And I firmly believe that unless you change, unless you transform this, because the entire structure is highly exploitative. You see, this is very tricky thing again. Being I mean at the research institute, receiving my full salary, having all the comforts of a middle class living, I can say,
Correct.
right, that this system is rubbish. It should be changed. It should be totally discarded.
Correct.
A new system should be such that there is equality. There are no stratification. There are no injustice to poor people. No exploitation. All people are equal in right terms of the word. Not only simply equal voters as we understood now.
Correct.
So basically, this justice, equality, and of course, nowadays we have to address this issue of religion, fanaticism,
Oh.
right? So that is also one major issue that we should. At the present context, I would not go to the extreme.
Correct.
That the Institute of Religion is responsible,
Correct.
or Institute of Religion should be totally discarded
Correct.
and prohibited. No, I would not say that. But even if you follow your religious, what should I say, gospel, whatever, or religious sermons, you would not harm others following a different religious path or different belief system. So, at least for time being, there are certain irrational, unscientific
Correct.
elements in every religion,
True.
and there are reasons for that. As a social scientist, I could understand this, that why these sort of rituals and elements and components are part of religious system, any religious institution, whether it's Hinduism or Christianity or Islam. So I would say that follow your religious path without harming, without criticizing, or without throwing stone at the different belief system.
Absolutely correct.
That is one thing, because nowadays religious, and you see, basically you cannot say that religion cannot be part of politics or religion cannot be part of social institution. These are all very tricky issues. These are all complex issues.
Correct.
Right? So, but being, if I'm born in Hindu
Correct.
or Hinduism, that doesn't mean that while following certain rituals, certain kind of traits of the religion, I should go and blame other religious paths.
Correct.
And instigate, because of my training, instigate my religious fellows to organize and create havoc for other people.
Correct.
So this should not be. One thing is that. So the religious religions in the place of religions in India will remain.
Absolutely.
It's a very, I don't know how to address it. It's a very complex, but people do need certain, certain attachment, certain affiliation. After all, we are human beings, are very sensitive people, emotional people, so they need community. They need this sort of interpersonal relationship, which they find in religion.
Correct.
They want solidarity.
Correct.
So this solidarity, this Venus sort, maybe religion is providing, or caste is providing, but that doesn't mean in terms of religion, in the name of religion, or in name of caste, or in name of tribe, you have a license to, exploit others,
Right.
attack others, assault others, and violence. So this should not be. I mean, I know these are all very ideals, but that is one thing that what I will want. But I personally, and which is very utopian again, because the thinkers from centuries have been thinking about it, that we have a very egalitarian social and economic order.
Correct.
All right, and unless this mode of production, this relationship of properties
Correct.
is changed,
Right.
that will not happen.
Correct.
Because you see, basically ownership,
Right.
power,
True.
these are all related things, and ownership and power always corrupt. It always creates problem in human being.
Correct.
It is injurious for society. So, but this is again very utopian if you take into account the present
No.
social order or economic order we are living in. So that is one thing. But yes, I mean, in principle, if you ask me, my future or desired social order, I would say it, that everybody, I mean, there is no possession of property or personal thing. Everybody is a community owned, and but again, very ideal, because as I said, human being is very complex, and that is why, despite all the great thinkers and philosophers, all all propagation their ideas, and somebody tried to follow at certain places in Europe and elsewhere, still that noble ideas of equality, socialism, it has failed. But the problem is not ideas, the problem is human being.
Absolutely.
So that is the issue.
At last, sir, I would like to you the final question.
Yes.
Sir, from your side, what is the one positive message for the people of India and large, to the world? One positive message.
You see, one positive message to the world, I would say,
Especially for the people of India.
I would say our most positive aspect is our plurality, and that is amazing.
Absolutely.
Considering the variations
Mhm.
and differentiations in terms of language, in terms of culture, in terms of regional background, and some in terms of attires, customs, rituals, you count anything.
Absolutely.
But this plurality,
Mhm.
this is our plus point. This is the most positive point.
Yes, yes, yes.
And whichever social or economic structure we are living in, or we may have in the future,
Correct.
this plurality
Uh-huh.
of living, of being,
Correct.
should be nurtured, preserved, protected.
Absolutely.
That is the most positive thing of India.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? I mean, if I move to Manipur or Mizoram or travel, or Kashmir, for instance,
Yes.
I mean, I was totally overawed and amazed
Correct.
by the humility and the nobleness and differentiation. So, despite all the differentiation of culture and everything, of language,
Correct.
we cannot even sometimes, if you go to Tamil Nadu, it's difficult to even interact if you don't know English.
Right.
Right? But despite that, we have that certain very, I must say, very what to say, how to explain it. लेकिन एक नाजुक सा जो एक bond है between people
Absolutely.
of different regions.
Composite culture.
Yes, different cultures, I should say, not opposite,
But
but
composite culture.
composite culture. Right. So this composite syncretic culture.
Yes.
This syncretic culture should be maintained, but not, of course, not at the, because sometimes it is very misinterpreted and misleading also,
Absolutely.
right? So I am not saying that this culture or this social system should be maintained. No, I'm not talking about it, because I know this system, this social system, irrespective of religion, are very, very oppressive for certain people.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm talking about Dalits and
Yeah.
others, right? So, no, I'm not saying that. That okay, as Gandhiji, I don't know in what context Gandhi talk about this Varnashram, that no, Varnashram is good for Hindu society. No, I'm not talking about that. In fact, I have been, I'm a firm believer that this Varnashram should be abolished completely. And so some people are saying, and very rightly so, that Hindu religious itself is very exploitative in nature, very oppressive for Dalits.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. Dalits are oppressive people, I mean, of minorities, working class, Adivasis. They have been suppressed, oppressed, harassed, exploited because of system. I'm talking only about the cultural aspect, but I don't include in culture this varnashram, this hierarchy, I should say, social hierarchy. No, it should be abolished as early as possible, right? So I don't, subscribe to that.
Correct.
But at the same time, this differentiation of culture, of region, of climate, climate, of course, we cannot work on, but who knows? Now the effort is going on part of certain political players, and political actors, and political outfits for monochrome or monochromize entire culture.
Correct.
And unify in the name of nation. This concept of nation is very, very dangerous. We should give up, we should give away to that also, we should discard that. Because nations means parochial thinking.
Correct.
Right? So, I am not subscribing to that. That in the name of nation, we have to do away with all the differences and all the variations, all the broad fabric of societal social order. No, I'm not talking about that. That variations, that fabric should be preserved. At the same time, this economic disparity, social oppression, and social exploitation, economic exploitation should be doable as early as possible.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
My pleasure.
Wonderful.
My pleasure.
So, viewers, we were in conversation with Dr. Kiran Desai, sir, the Honourable Professor at Center for Social Studies in Surat. How wonderfully he has elaborated, how darefully he has elaborated everything. I must say everyone should watch this interview and take the maximum benefit out of it. And we wish sir very all the best and very long and healthy life. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for this
welcome.
very, very nice interaction with you. And I'm indeed very grateful to you and
Most welcome.
your institution for having this interaction with me. It also provides me some scope to clarify my ideas, to explain it in a very clear way. So thank you very much.